doesn't. They don't panic when you react, they panic when you stop. Today, we'll uncover the hidden power of staying calm under pressure.
Notice how the world constantly seeks a reaction from you. A glance, a word, a sigh each becomes a signal to those around you that you are invested in the chaos of their making. From the moment we wake, events, people, and circumstances test us, some subtly, others with sharp insistence. You may feel that urgency pressing on your mind, that subtle, almost imperceptible pull to respond, defend, or assert. But pause. Consider for a moment what it would mean to stop reacting. Not out of apathy, not out of disengagement, but from a place of calm, deliberate observation. Imagine yourself walking into a crowded space where voices overlap, each demanding attention, each expecting a reply. Normally, you would feel the tension rise within you, a silent alarm triggered by the expectations of others. You might argue, correct, justify, or withdraw. But what if you allowed yourself simply to observe without immediate engagement? The pressure does not vanish, it shifts. The people around you, accustomed to measuring your presence by your responses, notice a strange absence. And in that absence, a subtle unease emerges. They have grown reliant on your reaction, and when it is withheld, their method of influence falters. To stop reacting is to step into a form of freedom few understand. It is not a tool for avoidance, but a discipline of the mind. By holding still in the midst of provocation, you create space to see clearly, to act deliberately, and to preserve your energy for what truly matters. Others may misinterpret your calm at first. They may escalate, push, or attempt to draw you into their current. But the more you resist the pull, the more evident your independence becomes. Strength is not always expressed in movement. Often it is most visible in restraint. Consider the implication. Every day we are surrounded by people who seek to stir you as colleagues, acquaintances, even strangers online. Each comment, each glance, each unexpected circumstance is a test of attention. To react immediately is to surrender a part of yourself to forces you cannot control. To pause, to maintain inner stillness, is to reclaim that power. In practice, it begins simply. Notice the urge to respond, breathe, and choose silence. Allow the moment to exist without adding your energy to it. Over time, the world adjusts, not because it is forced, but because it recognizes that your calm is a new standard, unyielding and quiet, yet profoundly effective. This is the beginning of understanding the subtle power of inaction. By refusing to react automatically, you begin to shape your life around your values rather than around the demands of others. And in that shaping, you discover a depth of clarity, focus, and inner peace that reaction alone could never provide. The world continues to move, voices continue to call, and circumstances remain unpredictable, but within you begin to cultivate a quiet strength that no chaos can touch. I once observed a man in a meeting, someone skilled at agitation, who thrived on provoking responses from others. His words were sharp, his tone urgent, and he carried the air of someone accustomed to controlling the room through disturbance. Normally, colleagues would rise to meet his energy, interrupting, defending, justifying themselves, or even retaliating in subtle ways. But one person, quiet and composed, chose instead to remain still. No expression betrayed irritation, no tone hinted at approval or offense. He simply listened, measured, and withheld the instinct to respond. At first, the provocateur persisted. He raised his volume, sharpened his language, gestured more aggressively. The room, accustomed to a back and forth, anticipated tension. Yet the calm man's silence created an unfamiliar vacuum. Every attempt to provoke a reaction was met not with resistance but with absence, and the energy in the room began to shift subtly. Colleagues who had once been engaged now glanced toward the silent figure, sensing a strange power in his refusal to react. The provocateur's confidence wavered, the usual rhythms of agitation no longer applied. The tension was palpable. It was not the absence of attention, but the refusal to be disturbed that unsettled him. He had expected friction, opposition, resistance, but instead he encountered something unyielding yet non-violent, presence without compromise. Panic, though quiet at first, began to appear in his movements. His gestures grew exaggerated, his words rushed, as though the world itself had betrayed his method. It is a curious phenomenon when the expected reaction does not come. When the pattern of disturbance is denied its fuel, the provocateur experiences the dissonance as confusion, almost a loss of control. This is the paradox of quiet strength. It is not achieved by dominating others or asserting superiority. It is cultivated through discipline, patience, and observation. The calm man had done nothing externally, yet the effect was profound. Those accustomed to drawing energy from chaos suddenly found their method ineffective. Their panic was not a reflection of the silent observer's aggression, but a mirror of their own dependence on response. In withholding reaction, one reveals the reliance of others on the turbulence they create, and the more firmly one holds still, the more evident that reliance becomes. It is essential to notice the subtlety here. Silence is not passive, it is deliberate. The calm figure remained aware of the provocateur's words, attentive to the energy in the room, fully engaged internally, yet refused to surrender to automatic impulses. In this way, he transformed a moment of potential conflict into a demonstration of measured strength. The lesson is clear. When you stop reacting, you do not concede power, you reclaim it. And in that reclamation, you create an internal authority that cannot be shaken by the expectations of others. Even as the provocateur stumbled, searching for the friction that would normally confirm his control, the calm observer did not gloat, did not display superiority. He simply maintained his poise, allowing the natural consequences of his non-reaction to unfold. Others in the room who had expected confrontation now observed the unraveling with quiet fascination. The room itself seemed to adjust, aligning with the presence of someone undisturbed. Panic, once invisible, now became the unmistakable echo of reaction denied. And here is the subtle insight. The panic of others is rarely about you personally. It is about their attachment to influence, their need to extract energy through disturbance. When you withhold that energy, when you refuse to validate the pattern of provocation, you illuminate a truth that cannot be refuted. Control over oneself is more powerful than control over circumstances. The calm man's stillness became both a shield and a demonstration, a reflection of inner mastery in a world eager to provoke. To stop reacting is to create this effect consistently. It is not a tactic to be applied once, but a discipline cultivated over time. Each moment of withheld reaction strengthens the mind, refines attention, and sharpens the clarity with which one navigates life. The provocateur's panic is instructive. It reveals not the vulnerability of the silent observer, but the reliance of others on predictable disturbance. And in recognizing this, one learns the profound freedom that comes from acting from purpose, not impulse. The lesson of this meeting extends beyond the room, beyond a single interaction. Life is filled with individuals and circumstances that expect, even demand, our reaction. The instinct to respond is strong, often urgent. Yet in resisting that instinct, in cultivating calm observation and measured presence, one discovers the quiet authority of self-mastery, a power that disarms, unsettles, and ultimately elevates the spirit above the ordinary currents of agitation and expectation. The calm man did not triumph because he dominated or defeated. He triumphed because he did not surrender. And in that restraint, a deeper lesson emerges. Those who panic when you stop reacting are not stronger, they are dependent. Their methods work only on those who give themselves away. In holding still, you reveal both the fragility of their influence and the depth of your own discipline, setting a standard not of confrontation, but of enduring strength. That it is a strange power, this ability to stop reacting. It is quiet, almost invisible to those untrained in restraint, yet it exerts an undeniable force. Consider the person who speaks loudly, who pushes aggressively, who expects the world to bend to the measure of their voice. Their tools are simple: provocation, urgency, subtle intimidation. And they are effective, but only when met with response. Remove that response, and the tools lose their edge. The power does not lie in the absence itself, but in the mastery. It implies the mastery of oneself, the refusal to surrender to impulse. Do not mistake this for weakness. To maintain composure while being challenged requires more strength than to rise and strike with anger, sarcasm, or dismissal. Impulses are strong. They demand immediate attention. They tempt us to assert, defend, or correct. But each yielded impulse is energy lost, each reaction a compromise of inner freedom. Strength manifests quietly in the ability to hold your mind still when the world presses against it, to observe without absorption, to act only when action is necessary and chosen deliberately. This is the essence of control, not over others but over yourself. Observe those who attempt to provoke. Their method is consistent. They measure influence through the disturbance they cause. And when your reaction is withheld, they are confronted by a new reality. Their expectation of friction, of visible engagement, collapses. This collapse, though imperceptible at first, creates subtle panic, a disturbance born not of external threat, but of the absence of expected chaos. It is in these moments that the quiet strength of non-reaction becomes evident. You are not engaged in a battle with them. You are demonstrating a higher command, one rooted not in external force, but in self-mastery. The paradox is simple. Power often appears as stillness. The world anticipates movement, response, and engagement. We are conditioned to equate action with presence, reaction with significance. Yet those who stop reacting reveal a different reality. They are fully present, yet untouched by the turbulence of others. Their calm becomes a mirror in which the frantic energy of the provocateur reflects, unabsorbed and uncontrolled. And in this reflection, the instability of the other is revealed. Consider also the internal effect. Each moment in which you refuse to react is a moment of clarity gained. The mind, freed from the compulsive pull of external demand, becomes sharper, more observant. Decisions are no longer made in the heat of emotion, but in the cool light of reason. This is the hidden benefit. The world's chaos does not penetrate, and yet your awareness expands. You see patterns, motives, and consequences that others cannot perceive because they are entangled in reaction. Your energy is preserved for deliberate action, and your presence becomes measured, purposeful, and difficult to unsettle. Stopping reaction is not about avoidance. It is about discipline. The world will continue to challenge, to provoke, to demand. Your calmness does not remove these challenges, but it changes how they affect you. In the absence of reaction, you create a space for observation, understanding, and intentional choice. You learn to discern which matters require intervention and which require only attention without disturbance. And in this discernment, the depth of your character is revealed. The effect on others cannot be underestimated. People accustomed to drawing energy from your agitation will respond unpredictably. They may escalate, become impatient, or search for other levers of influence. This is evidence, not failure. It is evidence that your non-reaction disrupts their habitual methods. Their panic is a subtle acknowledgement of your power, a mirror reflecting the quiet authority you have cultivated. In time, the constancy of your restraint teaches them, without words, that your inner state is not theirs to command. Understand that this is not about winning arguments or controlling outcomes. It is about the governance of self. You do not silence others to dominate. You maintain stillness to preserve clarity. Strength is measured not by the disturbance you provoke, but by the calm you sustain. Those who panic when you refuse to engage are revealing their dependence on external validation, on visible friction. Your mastery of stillness exposes the fragility of their methods and the solidity of your own mind. And in this practice, a larger lesson emerges. The world's insistence on reaction is not a law, but a habit. To participate in it is to surrender a portion of your power. To resist it, to cultivate the quiet authority of non-reaction, is to reclaim that power. This is the paradoxical path of discipline. In doing less outwardly, you gain more inwardly. In withholding response, you command presence. In maintaining calm, you establish freedom. So, pause, observe, and resist the urge to engage impulsively. Let the first moments of non-reaction be deliberate, even uncomfortable. Over time, the effect extends beyond single interaction. You begin to shape your life by your choices rather than by the provocations of others. And in that shaping, the subtle but profound truth becomes evident. True influence lies not in reaction, but in restraint, in the calm assertion of self over circumstance, and in the quiet mastery of the mind that refuses to be unsettled. Consider how often we give away our presence through reaction. A harsh comment, a sudden disappointment, an unexpected slight, how quickly the mind rushes to respond, how easily the chest tightens, the voice rises, the hands clench. Each reaction, though brief, surrenders a fragment of attention to forces outside your control. You may believe that responding restores balance, that a quick word or gesture will assert your stability, but more often it simply extends the energy of disturbance, feeding the very chaos you hope to contain. To stop reacting is not to ignore life, it is to choose your engagement deliberately. Begin by noticing the impulses as they arise. A sharp word triggers tension in the chest. A disrespectful glance sparks irritation. Pause. Do not act. Observe the impulse as if it belongs to someone else. Let the moment exist without adding to it. This simple act of restraint may feel uncomfortable at first, like resisting gravity with invisible force. But each time you do so, you reclaim energy, preserve clarity, and strengthen the mind's ability to govern itself rather than be governed. Notice the subtle shift in perception. In stillness, events lose their power to disturb. People remain the same, they speak, gesture, argue, but your inner response no longer serves as fuel for their behavior. The room, the conversation, the conflict, these continue, yet your presence is anchored. From this vantage, clarity emerges. You see the patterns others miss, the underlying motives, the rhythm of chaos. You are aware without being swept away, attentive without being reactive. And it is in this space that wisdom begins to reveal itself. The paradox is simple but profound. By doing nothing outwardly, you are doing everything inwardly. The world expects reaction. When you withhold it, you step outside of ordinary expectation. You begin to measure events by your own reason rather than by the emotional currents others attempt to impose. This is the first step toward mastery, recognizing that the compulsion to react is a habit, not a necessity, and that strength lies in deliberate restraint rather than automatic engagement. It is important to recognize that this is not passivity. To pause and observe is an active form of discipline. You remain present, aware, fully engaged internally. Your mind gathers insight, your perspective sharpens, and your decisions become measured rather than impulsive. Each moment of non-reaction is an investment in mental clarity, a reinforcement of the internal structures that govern thought and conduct. You are building a fortress within yourself, not by resisting life, but by refusing to surrender to its expected disturbances. Others will notice, though they may not understand. The provocateur, accustomed to drawing energy from your agitation, may escalate, pressing harder, seeking a reaction. But the more you resist, the more the pattern falters. Their frustration, even panic, is evidence of your growing strength, though it may appear chaotic to onlookers. In these moments, your calm becomes both shield and instrument, a demonstration of how inner discipline shapes outward perception without force, without confrontation, without chaos. Reflect also on the broader implication. How often do we measure our presence through the responses we elicit rather than the control we maintain? In daily life, reactions are easy. They are immediate, gratifying, and socially reinforced. Yet the cost is subtle, attention diverted, energy consumed, clarity diminished. By choosing non-reaction, you shift the balance of power not over others but over yourself. You create a field of observation from which you can act with precision, intention, and moral coherence. In essence, each pause, each refusal to react, is a reclaiming of sovereignty. Life will continue to press, provoke, and test. but the world's demands are only as urgent as the attention we grant them. By holding still, you begin to see the contours of influence differently. You recognize which matters deserve energy, which deserve thought, and which deserve only quiet acknowledgement before letting them pass. This is the heart of self-mastery, discerning what requires engagement and what does not. The strength of non-reaction lies not in the denial of life, but in the deliberate choice of what to accept into your mind, into your presence, into your energy. By observing without absorbing, you preserve the mind's clarity, the heart's steadiness, and the capacity for deliberate, meaningful action. So begin simply. Notice impulses as they arise. Pause. Breathe. Let the moment exist without you feeding it with reaction. With time, you will find the world feels less urgent, less overwhelming, and less capable of disturbing the peace you have cultivated. And in that peace, you will discover a strength far more enduring than any immediate retaliation. A clarity that transforms life not through conflict, but through measured, deliberate presence. It is important to understand that stopping reaction does not mean abandoning responsibility. There is a subtle but critical distinction between indifference and disciplined restraint. The former shrinks from life, ignoring its demands, evading consequence. The latter engages fully, but with purpose and control. A mother does not respond to every outburst of a child with anger, yet she acts decisively, shaping behavior with guidance rather than impulse. A leader does not shout back at criticism, yet he addresses problems with clarity and precision. In both cases, presence is complete, yet the self remains unshaken. This is the essence of strength, measured engagement rather than reflexive disturbance. The world will test you, push boundaries, even provoke to see if you will waver. Those accustomed to controlling through chaos will misinterpret your calm as weakness. They will persist, increase the pressure, escalate the conflict. This is not surprising. It is the expected response of a world that measures influence through reaction. But here is the quiet power of discipline. In maintaining composure, you do not merely withstand the test, you subtly transform it. Your restraint reshapes the dynamics around you, exposing the fragility of methods built on agitation. Strength manifests not in the sharp word or the defensive gesture, but in the capacity to remain grounded in the midst of provocation. Each withheld reaction is a demonstration of inner authority. The provocateur expects a spark. When none appears, uncertainty grows. This is the paradox of non-reaction. Power is not asserted outwardly. It is anchored inwardly. By refusing to participate in the expected turbulence, you create a force that is both impenetrable and silent. Others may misread it at first, but their perception will adjust over time. Observe the subtle effects of this discipline. A colleague accustomed to stirring conflict may attempt again and again, yet each effort is met with calm, measured attention. The energy they hope to provoke is absorbed by nothing, and in its place arises clarity. You begin to see not only their methods, but also the ways in which ordinary responses, anger, defensiveness, sarcasm have been unconsciously surrendered to them. Each act of non-reaction rewrites the rules of engagement. You are no longer a participant in habitual disturbance. You are the observer who chooses what to allow and what to transform. The power of stillness extends beyond confrontation. It touches all aspects of life where impulses demand immediate response. Traffic, social media, workplace tension, family disagreements, all are arenas in which the mind is invited to react reflexively. By cultivating deliberate non-reaction, you begin to reclaim authority over these moments. The mind grows quieter, sharper. Decisions are no longer made in the heat of emotion, but with reason guiding intent. Energy is preserved for meaningful action, not dispersed on every fleeting disturbance. And yet, this practice requires patience. The mind is conditioned to respond automatically. Impulses arise like tides, demanding attention. At first, withholding reaction may feel unnatural, even uncomfortable. There will be moments when the instinct to respond feels urgent, almost unbearable. But these moments are precisely the training ground for discipline. Each pause, each refusal to yield, strengthens the mind, deepens clarity, and fortifies character. Strength is measured not by the absence of challenge, but by the capacity to remain unmoved within it. There is another layer to this understanding. People often misinterpret calm as weakness precisely because they are accustomed to chaos as a measure of engagement. Their method of control relies on your reaction. When that reaction is withheld, they are forced to confront a reality in which their influence is limited. This can cause confusion, frustration, even subtle panic. It is in this misalignment that the quiet authority of non-reaction becomes visible. You are not acting against them, you are simply holding your ground, steady and deliberate. This is the hallmark of disciplined presence, the ability to act from principle rather than impulse. You engage when necessary, guided by reason, and refrain when engagement serves only to fuel disturbance. In doing so, you maintain the integrity of your mind and the continuity of your purpose. The external world will continue to challenge, provoke, and demand, but your inner state remains sovereign, undisturbed by the fluctuations that control so many others. In practice, this approach transforms ordinary life. Each interaction becomes a choice rather than a compulsion. Each response is measured, purposeful, and aligned with long-term intention. By distinguishing between what demands engagement and what does not, you cultivate a sense of power that is quiet yet undeniable. Strength, after all, is not always visible. Sometimes it is the stillness that carries the greatest force, so consider this as you move through the day. Observe where the mind leaps to respond. Pause, assess. Allow deliberate engagement to guide your actions, and withhold reaction where it serves no purpose other than to surrender energy. In these moments, you are building something far deeper than control over circumstance. You are building a mind capable of clarity, resilience, and unshakable presence in a world designed to provoke. I have noticed this pattern in many corners of life, in marketplaces, offices, social gatherings, even within families. The person who remains unmoved, who refuses the pull of automatic reaction, often becomes the quiet axis around which the rest of the world spins. It is not because they seek to dominate or control others, but because their stillness creates a point of equilibrium. They do not manipulate events, they master themselves, and in doing so they reveal a subtle yet profound authority that cannot be taken by force or argument. The irony is striking. The more chaotic the world around them becomes, the more evident their stability. People who thrive on disturbance, those who test, provoke, and unsettle, find themselves uncertain, almost disoriented. The usual levers they rely upon no longer function. The absence of reaction unsettles them precisely because their power depends upon your engagement. When that engagement is denied, the rules of influence shift. They panic not because you act against them, but because their methods fail. Their expectation of friction, of tension, of a visible spark is disrupted. This effect is subtle, yet unmistakable. It is not the loud triumph of a confrontation. It is the quiet recalibration of perception. Others begin to notice that their usual tactics do not yield the same results. The provocateur may escalate, speaking louder or acting more aggressively, yet the calm observer remains unshaken. With each test, their influence diminishes. The panic is internal, hidden behind words and gestures, and yet it is present. It is the acknowledgement that your presence no longer belongs to the chaos, that your attention is no longer available as fuel for disturbance. This is the power of self-mastery made visible. It is a force that is exercised without aggression, without dominance, without show. The calm individual does not seek to unsettle others. They simply refuse to be unsettled themselves, and in doing so, they illuminate the dependency of others on predictable reactions. The more persistent the provocation, the more pronounced the realization of autonomy becomes. Others sense that the silent observer is not weak, but deliberately untouchable. There is also a personal benefit that cannot be overstated. By refusing to react, The mind is freed from the constant pull of external expectation. Decisions are made with clarity, not haste. Attention is preserved for what is meaningful, not squandered on fleeting disturbance. The world continues to unfold with its tensions and conflicts, but the individual who has cultivated non-reaction moves through it with purpose and poise. Energy once lost to agitation is now invested in thoughtful action, reflection, and the maintenance of inner equilibrium. Notice the paradox: power often appears as stillness, while the world anticipates response. Your calmness commands attention. Others unconsciously adjust to the presence of someone unmoved, not because they are forced, but because they are compelled to recognize a standard that they cannot disturb. The panic of those accustomed to chaos becomes evidence of the strength of your restraint. Your mastery is not declared through force, it is demonstrated through the consistency of unshaken presence. This discipline, however, is not innate, it is cultivated. It requires patience and awareness. The mind will resist. Impulses arise demanding engagement, often insisting on immediate response. The challenge lies not in the world around you, but in the restlessness within. Every moment of withheld reaction, every pause is a rehearsal in self-governance. Over time, the discipline of calm becomes habitual, and the quiet authority of the individual emerges as natural, unforced, and undeniable. It is also instructive to note that panic in others is rarely personal. It is a reflection of their dependence on disturbance, their expectation that the world will bend to their measure. When you refuse to participate, they are forced to confront the limits of their influence. This confrontation is often uncomfortable for them, revealing a vulnerability that is entirely independent of your actions. In this way, the practice of non-reaction teaches more than self-mastery. It exposes the subtleties of human expectation and the ways in which our presence is often misappropriated by others' habits. In all of this, the lesson is clear: the calm, disciplined mind holds a power that is quiet but profound. It does not demand attention through spectacle. It commands presence through integrity and consistency. When you stop reacting, the world begins to recalibrate. Those who seek to unsettle you are confronted not with force, but with impenetrable steadiness. And in that steadiness you find not only freedom from chaos, but the quiet satisfaction of mastery over yourself, the foundation for action that is deliberate, purposeful, and resilient. The world may never fully understand this method. Provocation, testing, and the desire for immediate engagement are natural tendencies in many. Yet the individual who cultivates non-reaction discovers a subtle sovereignty. Influence is no longer granted to the highest volume, the sharpest gesture, or the most urgent demand. Instead, it is claimed through calm, measured presence, and the unshakable authority of a mind that refuses to be disturbed. Yet this practice is neither simple nor immediate. The mind is restless by nature, conditioned to respond, to defend, to justify. Every word, gesture, or glance can trigger a cascade of impulses: anger, irritation, anxiety, each demanding attention, each insisting on expression. The challenge lies in recognizing these impulses without surrendering to them, in observing their rise and letting them pass without acting. This requires patience, awareness, and repetition. It is a practice, not a one-time achievement. Begin by noticing the first stirrings of reaction as they emerge. Perhaps a colleague interrupts you abruptly, or someone's remark carries an unspoken slight. The chest tightens. The mind leans forward, ready to correct, argue, or assert. Pause. Breathe. Allow the sensation to exist without giving it form through speech or gesture. This moment, brief yet deliberate, is the training ground of discipline. With each pause, clarity grows. The mind learns that presence does not require reaction, and the energy is preserved when it is directed rather than diffused. The initial discomfort is natural. It may feel as though you are denying yourself, as though you are failing to engage, but reflect what is truly being denied: not life, not interaction, but the mind's habitual surrender to disturbance. The paradox is striking. In doing less outwardly, you gain more inwardly. Your awareness sharpens. Your judgment becomes precise. You are present, fully attentive, yet not ensnared by the pull of others' impulses. This is the foundation of subtle power, the authority of self-mastery that operates quietly yet profoundly. Over time, the results extend beyond a single interaction. You will notice how people respond to your calm. Those accustomed to provoking reactions may escalate, seeking the spark they once relied upon. They raise their voices, intensify their gestures, press harder. Yet the more they attempt to unsettle you, the more evident your steadiness becomes. Their panic is not a reflection of weakness on your part, but of the dependency they have on disturbance as a source of influence. You, however, remain anchored, observing without absorption. It is critical to maintain awareness during these moments. Stillness is not blankness, it is attention, deliberate and active. You are present to observe motives, to gauge intentions, to perceive patterns invisible to those caught in reactive cycles. Each provocation becomes a lesson in human expectation and attachment. You begin to see how often others act to elicit energy, how frequently they depend on your immediate response. And in seeing this, you cultivate a freedom that is impervious to the habitual turbulence of the world. This discipline also teaches discernment. Not every challenge requires engagement. Some disturbances merit attention, others do not. By cultivating non-reaction, you learn to identify which moments deserve deliberate intervention and which are best met with observation alone. Energy is a finite resource. Reaction often dissipates it on matters of little consequence. In contrast, restraint preserves it for action aligned with reason, principle, and long-term purpose. Consider how this principle extends beyond confrontation. In daily life, on social media, in traffic, within professional or familial contexts, opportunities for automatic reaction appear constantly. The temptation to respond immediately is strong, socially reinforced, and psychologically compelling. Yet each deliberate pause, each conscious decision to withhold reaction, strengthens the mind's capacity for self-governance. It is a subtle cultivation of power, invisible to most, yet unmistakable in its effect. The most challenging moments are often the smallest: an offhand remark, an unjust critique, a fleeting insult. These are the moments where restraint is hardest, where the mind is trained to leap. Practice begins here. Notice the impulse. Breathe. Let it pass. Each successful pause reinforces the habit of measured presence, fortifying character against future provocations. Discipline is built incrementally, one withheld reaction at a time. Eventually, this practice transforms the individual's relationship to the world. The mind becomes quieter, sharper, more attuned. Clarity replaces agitation, observation replaces compulsion. You no longer drift in response to external stimuli, you navigate life with intentionality. The world continues to press, provoke, and demand, but your inner steadiness becomes a constant. Action, when required, is deliberate, precise, and aligned with principle. In this way, patience and awareness are not merely tools, they are the foundation of power. They allow the mind to operate from a place of purpose rather than habit, to respond to life on one's own terms, and to cultivate a quiet authority that unsettles those who rely on disturbance. The discipline of non-reaction is not about avoiding life, it is about mastering oneself within it. There is a profound lesson in the way others respond to your stillness. Those who are accustomed to stirring chaos through words, gestures, or subtle manipulations often react unpredictably when met with deliberate calm. They may escalate, pressing harder, testing boundaries, or searching for new levers of influence. This is not a signal of your weakness nor an invitation to abandon restraint. Rather, it is evidence of the effectiveness of your discipline. Their confusion, frustration, or even subtle panic confirms that the usual methods of control are failing. Consider why this occurs. People who rely on provocation extract energy from the reactions they anticipate. Anger, defensiveness, hesitation, these are the currencies of their influence. When you refuse to offer them, the expected dynamic collapses. Their strategies, honed over years of practice, meet an unexpected barrier. Your mind, steady and unshakable, does not participate in the habitual exchange. This absence of engagement is not empty. It is an active demonstration of inner authority. You do not act against them, you act through yourself, and this alone reshapes the interaction. The panic of others in these moments is instructive. It reveals the fragility of influence that depends entirely on external validation. Their agitation is rarely personal, it is the echo of their own expectation being denied. And in observing this, you gain insight into human behavior. Most conflict arises not from necessity, but from habit. People push because it is familiar, because it has worked before. When the familiar fails, confusion emerges. The calm mind becomes a mirror in which their dependency on predictable responses is exposed. This is the paradoxical strength of non-reaction. By doing less outwardly, you do more inwardly. You preserve your energy, sharpen your judgment, and maintain clarity. The world continues to press, to provoke, to demand attention, but your mind remains sovereign. Each moment of withheld reaction reinforces the habit of deliberate presence, and each test of patience becomes an opportunity for reinforcement of self-mastery. Over time, this becomes not only a method, but a defining characteristic of character. It is crucial to remember that non-reaction is not passive avoidance. The mind remains attentive, fully aware of the unfolding situation. You observe motives, patterns, and consequences with precision while remaining unabsorbed by the turbulence around you. This awareness allows you to engage when necessary, but only from a position of reason and purpose, rather than from impulse or compulsion. Action becomes deliberate, aligned with principle, and free of unnecessary emotion. Notice also how this discipline changes the environment. Those accustomed to provoking reactions may attempt to adjust, seeking other means of influence, yet they find their impact diminished. Their panic is an inadvertent acknowledgement of the quiet authority you project. They become aware, however subtly, that the usual mechanisms of disturbance cannot penetrate your mind. Your calm presence becomes a standard, a subtle force that others unconsciously measure against, altering their behavior without confrontation or coercion. The cultivation of this strength requires patience and practice. The mind is restless, conditioned to react automatically. Impulses will arise, often insistent, demanding immediate attention. Each moment in which you resist those impulses is a reinforcement of inner sovereignty. The practice is cumulative, each pause builds upon the last, forming the foundation for a mind capable of sustained clarity and disciplined judgment. Through this, a deeper truth emerges. Influence that relies on disturbance is fragile, while the strength grounded in non-reaction is enduring. By maintaining composure, you do not merely withstand provocation, you shape the dynamics around you, demonstrating that true authority does not require aggression, confrontation, or dominance. It arises from the consistency of presence, the deliberate control of attention, and the mastery of one's own impulses. Ultimately, the practice of non-reaction is a study in the subtle power of self-governance. It transforms ordinary interactions into exercises in clarity, patience, and discernment. The panic of others is not a reflection of your weakness, but a confirmation of the discipline you have cultivated. By holding still, observing, and acting only from purpose, you establish a standard that cannot be shaken by external turbulence. And in that standard, the mind discovers freedom, the heart steadiness, and the life a measured strength that endures beyond the fleeting disturbances of the world. In the end, the practice of non-reaction is not a strategy for controlling the world, it is the cultivation of self-mastery. The storms of life continue to rage, unexpected events, difficult people, and circumstances beyond your influence, but your inner fortress remains intact. You do not seek to dominate or suppress, nor do you manipulate outcomes through forceful engagement. Instead, you exercise authority over yourself, and in doing so, you naturally influence the way the world interacts with you. Calm becomes a silent signal that your mind is not governed by impulse, and presence itself carries weight. Consider how often we are entangled in reaction without realizing it, We respond to a harsh word with irritation, to criticism with defensiveness, to provocation with impatience. Each response, though seemingly justified, binds our energy to the demands of others. When you cultivate stillness, you reclaim that energy. You see situations clearly, and you choose your actions deliberately, guided by reason rather than instinct. This clarity allows you to act when it truly matters, and to refrain when action serves only to feed chaos. There is a subtle distinction here that is critical to understand. Non-reaction is not disengagement from life. It is full engagement with a mind and heart unshaken by the currents of expectation. The difference lies in where authority resides. Ordinary engagement is often reactive, allowing external forces to dictate energy and attention. Disciplined engagement arises from the deliberate choice of when and how to participate, preserving clarity and purpose. This distinction is not apparent to those accustomed to immediate reaction. They see stillness as absence or weakness, but it is the mark of enduring strength. The consequences of this practice extend beyond individual moments. By consistently exercising restraint, you create a life in which impulse no longer dominates thought, where attention is directed by judgment rather than habit. Relationships, work, and daily interactions are navigated with clarity. Others may test boundaries, provoke, or seek agitation, but you remain anchored. Your decisions, speech, and action are measured, deliberate, and aligned with principle. Over time, this disciplined approach becomes a defining characteristic of your presence, shaping how the world responds to you without a single word of force. Observe the subtle power in this truth. Those who panic when you stop reacting reveal not your vulnerability, but their dependence on your participation in chaos. Their methods fail because they rely on your reaction as confirmation, and when it is withheld, uncertainty arises. You are not responsible for their confusion. Your responsibility is to yourself to maintain clarity, to cultivate patience, and to act with reasoned purpose. In mastering your own mind, you create stability in a world designed to test it. This is a profound lesson in perspective. Life will continue to present challenges, injustices, and provocations. Some will be immediate, some delayed, some subtle, others pronounced. Yet the difference between being swept away by circumstance and navigating it with authority lies not in the events themselves, but in your response. Non-reaction is a practice in awareness, patience, and self-discipline. It is a cultivation of an inner fortress capable of withstanding the fluctuations of the external world. There is also freedom in this approach. By refusing to react automatically, you no longer allow others to define your emotional state. You act only when action is necessary, and always from a place of principle. Your mind is preserved, your attention focused, your energy directed toward what truly matters. And in this preservation lies a quiet, enduring power, one that does not need validation, spectacle, or confrontation to exist. The practice, sustained over time, transforms ordinary life. You begin to anticipate triggers, recognize habitual provocations, and prepare the mind to remain unshaken. With each encounter, restraint becomes easier, patience deeper, clarity sharper. Life continues with its unpredictability, but your presence becomes a constant, composed, deliberate, and resilient. Others may continue to test, but the stability you cultivate is no longer contingent on the world it is rooted within. In embracing non-reaction, you discover a paradox. By giving up the need to respond immediately, you gain control over your life in ways that reactive engagement cannot provide. Action, when taken, carries precision and purpose. Energy is preserved and directed toward growth, learning, and meaningful accomplishment. The chaos around you may persist, but it no longer dictates your inner state. Through this disciplined calm, you cultivate a mind capable of clarity, a heart capable of steadiness, and a life guided by conscious choice rather than habitual impulse. And so the journey is complete in its essence. Mastery over oneself is the foundation of influence, resilience, and peace. By refusing to react impulsively, by observing, pausing, and choosing your engagement deliberately, you cultivate a life of enduring strength and measured presence. Built by Stoicism encourages you to reflect on your own patterns of reaction, to identify where restraint may serve you, and to continue this practice daily. Let calm become your instrument, clarity your guide, and deliberate action the measure of your life. And so, reflect upon the implications for your own life. Notice where you allow the world, people, circumstances, even your own fleeting thoughts to dictate your emotional state. Observe the impulses to respond immediately, to defend, to justify, or to react with irritation. Each of these impulses is an opportunity to exercise discipline, to cultivate awareness, and to reclaim authority over yourself. Begin patiently by pausing in these moments. Let silence and stillness become your default, even when the world expects otherwise. Understand that the panic or agitation of others is rarely about you personally. It is a reflection of their reliance on predictable reactions, on extracting energy through disturbance. When you refuse to feed that expectation, you do not provoke them through confrontation, you reveal the fragility of their methods. In holding your ground unshaken and deliberate, you demonstrate the power of self-mastery, the kind of strength that does not rely on noise, assertion, or spectacle. Your calm presence alone reshapes interactions and shifts the dynamics of influence. This is not a practice of avoidance. It is a cultivation of attention, clarity, and purpose. Life will continue to challenge you. Difficult people, unexpected circumstances, and small irritations will arise without pause. But by refusing to react automatically, you create a space within which reason can guide action, where your choices are deliberate, measured, and aligned with your values. Energy is preserved for the actions that truly matter, and the mind remains clear amid the turbulence. Begin in small, deliberate ways. Notice a single moment today where your instinct would normally be to react. Pause. Breathe. Observe without adding energy to the disturbance. Over time, this practice becomes habitual. Each withheld reaction strengthens patience, deepens clarity, and fortifies the mind's ability to govern itself. You begin to measure the world by your own reason rather than the expectations of others. In this process, the chaos around you loses its dominion, and your internal stability becomes unshakable. The quiet authority of non-reaction extends beyond single interactions. It transforms relationships, work, and personal growth. Those who rely on provocation are gradually confronted with the limits of their influence. Your calm reveals the depth of your discipline and the resilience of your character. Influence in this sense is not seized through disturbance or dominance, but earned through presence, measured action, and self-governance. Remember that mastery of self is both subtle and profound. It requires patience, reflection, and repeated practice. Each instance in which you refrain from immediate reaction is a reinforcement of your strength, a lesson in clarity, and a testament to your commitment to deliberate living. Over time, the mind learns to anticipate impulses, to observe them without attachment, and to respond only when action is warranted by principle rather than habit. Through this practice, you cultivate freedom from the tyranny of external expectation, from the compulsion to engage in every disturbance, and from the exhaustion that accompanies reactive living. The mind becomes sharper, the heart steadier, and the life more intentional. Action is no longer dictated by circumstance. It is guided by reason, principle, and long-term purpose. Calm, deliberate presence becomes a standard by which all interactions are measured. And so, take a moment now to reflect. Identify one area of life in which you habitually react, one situation where stillness might serve you better. Practice withholding that reaction, observing the results, and reinforcing the habit over time. Let each small act of restraint build the foundation for greater clarity, resilience, and self-mastery. Life will not pause to accommodate your discipline, but in cultivating it, you will find that the world adjusts subtly to the presence of your calm. Your journey is ongoing. Each day presents opportunities to pause, reflect, and act deliberately. Built by Stoicism invites you to continue this path, to cultivate patience, deepen awareness, and strengthen the mind. Let the practice of non-reaction guide your choices, anchor your attention, and cultivate the quiet strength that transforms life from reactive turbulence into deliberate, purposeful presence. In this calm authority lies freedom, clarity, and the enduring power of a mind fully mastered.